We're on the air. Can do some cursing. Can do some.
No, he wants company because he is major flow.
Do some. Do some, Rogan. Rogan Smith.
I don't curse.
Rogan, now we got a line for sure. This is the ball place. Ladies and gentlemen.
The worst curse
As
I
much
say
as
is
you've
the
seen
G word.
Rogan Smith in her pristine state, and by the way, she looks very nice with a very nice hairstyle today. What do you call that?
Out? I don't know what you call it.
She has the
Just
out
have it
style.
out.
We call it the OS, out style. Looks very nice today, I must say.
This the lion mane.
The lion man, the LM. All right.
Yeah.
So, what happened?
The one day I bring my headphones, you didn't bring your thingy.
No, I didn't bring my thing.
Oh.
Isn't it much better without the headphones?
No, that's when you case, when you go in the air. So, what were we talking about?
You're talking about
We talked
what were we
about that.
talking about? You mean before we came on?
Yeah.
Oh,
No, I was saying about how. So, no, I remember now. So, you see this picture of her. She got the blog. She got the poses. She, smile, cute, that kind of thing. Big time Kaisa. Now.
I don't.
No. And now she's sticking on a tongue and thing.
No, I'm
okay?
not.
Okay? And when she come off
You
the
need to
air,
stop
ladies and
lying.
gentlemen, I'm going to have my ear full. Okay? And then she also does, every now and again, she does promises to herself. I can stop kissing. Okay?
I must be promised myself for
How much
God,
promise you? How much
It's
you
like
promise?
years in the making. It's so hard. It's hard to stop cursing. It is.
I don't. Why do we have to stop cursing?
Because it's not. When I hear other people curse, I go, "Oh my God, I don't want to curse."
No, but they might be good cases.
They're overdoing it.
Yeah.
I don't.
But I'm saying
Yeah, you do have
cursing,
people who
in my
overdo it,
view,
though.
cursing. I mean, there are people. If you say something like, sugar honey iced tea because you stub your toe. Okay, it's a thing.
Yeah.
Okay, it's like saying let's not pee. I mean, you got to release.
I just
okay?
like all the people who don't curse. Like I feel so.
They
like,
curse.
evil.
They just don't hear. You don't hear them curse.
I know people who do not
They
curse.
don't. Yeah.
And I'm like, how do you express yourself properly?
They say
Oh darn!
Oh darn! Like
Yeah.
I have a cousin / god sister who talks like that.
I'm like,
oh darn!
that doesn't feel good.
Like what?
Nothing like a good.
But yeah, there's some people who like
darn.
you hear like some what I call street casing.
Oh,
That's what it's throwing.
That's rough. That's rough.
Yeah, that's
that's
when they
really rough.
like chain them together. They chain it together, right? Okay. You know. They shut your
Yeah.
and by the way, they always add sissy in that self. Okay.
You can lie. Yes, I can't take it when it's like when I listen to someone and they're like overdoing the cursing and stuff. Like I feel like
it's constant and it's
Yeah.
every other
Well,
word.
I'm chided.
It's
I'm
like,
chided by
I
my wife
immediately
all the
not
time for
want to
cursing.
curse.
There's cursing etiquette. Thank you very much.
yeah, like don't do it around the kids.
Yeah.
Oh,
Don't
no.
do it in
I don't hang with
I
kids.
slip up.
public.
I ain't gonna lie. And it's not
You know?
good. It's not. I try.
Yeah.
I don't do like major cursing, but in
See,
front
now,
of the
and
kids,
there's another
I mean,
thing. There's a difference also, and I tell people this all the time. There's a distinction between cursing and cursing someone.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you just might be someone, and you might be explaining something like, let me tell you something. I know that today. Okay? As
Yeah.
opposed to, you.
Right.
Or, carry your, Okay?
I know.
Sissy in there. You put sissy in there.
Yeah,
And then, so,
sissy
you
with
must-
water,
yeah.
Do you curse in front of your mom?
I have.
First of all,
cursed in
there's
front.
my good friend Illy case. Let's start with that.
Okay, so that's what we need to start.
Let's
my
start
mother
with
is
that.
a big time cusser.
Big time.
Oh,
Big
so
time cusser.
like
So that's
you
why
So you
get it
learn
from
how
your mom,
you
That's why I'm
you
cursing in front of kids because she did it in front of us when we were growing
yeah.
up.
So you
I don't believe that.
You
I
were
mean, I don't
swaddled-
believe that correlation
You were
because
swaddled in
I
casing.
my
Yeah,
parents-
you don't want to
No,
believe
no,
it
No,
because
I
you're
don't believe
scared.
that. No, I don't
No,
believe that
it's true.
correlation because my parents never cursed in front of us. I
Yeah, but
never.
You
Yeah,
got it
but
from
that
some
don't
other
mean nothing.
source.
Yeah, but it's not my parents.
Yeah, but the formula she's trying
Which
to tell
is-
you is while you might not,
Yeah.
your parent might not case, and you case. If you case, the child get
Yeah.
case. You might not
I'm
case.
gonna do the study.
You see what I'm saying?
I'm
We do the
telling
same.
you.
I don't
Like the
think so,
non-cursing,
because-
because you can rely on other people who case.
Listen.
Yeah, that's what I tell her. She get it from other sources.
Listen. So, yes,
Listen.
not my parents. I don't ever recall my parents like cursing like that in front of all of us.
Like that?
And it's four of us.
You mean like you?
Two of my siblings don't curse, and me and my other brother,
See?
we curse.
Big L and R don't case?
50%.
Who's that?
Big
No,
L and R.
I mean, I hear them now as an adult, but it's like it's
Do they kiss
It's
now?
not no.
Let's get them
not
out in the
at all.
public.
Not at all. And you know what? I also never really used to see them drinking.
Do they drink now?
They
trying it down now?
No, they might have a glass of wine here or there, or a beer here and there, but they are not drinkers.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Does
like
Illy
to
drink?
No, she's not. My mom's like
She a teetotaler?
she likes Campari.
Campari.
And
one of the
that's
worst
like
tasting things on the
Isn't that
planet.
a
Go ahead.
nasty? Thank you so
It's
much.
like-
Somebody
who
else
drinks that?
agrees with me.
No, but I say to people, listen, what's wrong with y'all? Y'all taste buds throw off?
like a vampire blood.
It's just bitter
But you
and
know what I
nasty.
mean? That's why I say I don't know. I don't believe
Campari?
it.
See, that's
Oh,
gross.
that's gross.
And then she'll put
Nasty.
milk in it.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then
my
people
God.
they miss like, you know, Campari and vodka or something like that.
But you don't drink, right?
I will drink a half.
No, you
Yeah,
can't.
don't let her.
Yeah,
I
beer.
see her drink. No,
You
no,
can't.
no,
My
no,
head
no.
starts ringing.
No,
Drinking's
no,
not
no,
for
no,
me.
no,
drink,
no,
yeah.
no.
So it ain't for you.
She dysfunctional.
But
She
yeah,
got.
but-
She
So all I
got.
drink is my
Put
my
the glass
lemonade,
down.
my fruit punch, that sort of
Best
stuff.
is she's the kind of person when you see her drink, you say no.
No. Just put that down. Just put it down.
No, Mom, but it's a correlation. I'm
I can
telling
imagine
you.
if you were to do a shot, we probably before we give you the shot, we probably at least put you on a tie it out or something
Let
like
me
that.
tell you something. Okay, so can I tell a little story?
Yes, tell a little story.
So my brother used to work at Sandals. This is way back in the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he would get me and like my mom passes. You know, they'd give like passes to them to come over. So we went to Sandals to have a great day, and I had one of his friends, the bartender, was like, "Try this buttery nipple. Try this shot. Try this, whatever." And I was like, "I always so square. Let me try this
Well,
stuff."
last thing you're not a square, but go ahead.
I feel like a square, you know, because
You're not a
nobody
square, go
drinking and stuff, right? So I drinking of this buttery nipple and all this different stuff and this shot.
Buttery nipple.
And let me tell you something. I felt like I was walking in clouds. Okay, so I was so messed
That is
up.
hilarious.
That was not for me. Like I was totally bust up.
Well, I seen you take a sip of wine and you ready to go lay down.
Yeah. It's bad. Why are you doing that tongue action, Mr. Fields?
The buttery.
I feel very
Buttery.
threatened. I feel threatened by that tongue
What
action.
that was. Let me tell you what explained
Where's
that.
HR?
Well, let me tell you what happened. The other day, I strained
They've
my
gone for
tongue,
the
so I
day.
was exercising it.
Yeah, I was straight. Well,
I
exercising
strained
facing
I
the window.
I strained it.
Don't
You
strain
know
it
about a
up
tongue
over
strain? Oh
I
no!
don't do
Let me say this. I stated it incorrectly. I say it correctly. If you go to HR, I sprained my tongue. Okay. Well, what happened? I sprained my tongue, and that's physiotherapy. It's the
Well,
PT.
look over there.
PT.
Look over there.
Oh shit.
No, they say
No.
you have to do it to the rest.
No,
To
don't
the
do it
east.
over here.
To the east.
But yeah, so the
yeah.
drinking thing ain't really for me. That's not my
Yeah.
issue.
Are we comfortable with saying things like buttery nipple on the air? Are we
That's
comfortable
the
with that?
name of
know,
the thing.
But I mean, are we comfortable? You see, just to show you,
What
you
if we
talk
were
about
talking
cursing,
about? What
right?
if we were talking about a baby's bottle?
No, but see, just to talk to you about
Butter-
the what do you call it? The lexicon, right? To share how what do you call it when you're stuck up? Not stuck up, but
Bougie?
no,
No,
you know
no.
when you, I guess it's stuck up.
But
or
rigid?
No, rigid. It's another word for rigid. I can't the name. Uptight.
Uptight.
Oh.
Uptight we are. Nothing like strong. But anyway, to show you how uptight we are, right? You realize that probably prior to like what year? I don't know. 5-6 years ago. To say nipple is like it's a huge thing. It's like you're
that's what women
sneaking.
got.
It's like but men have them. Baby bottles have them. But it doesn't. It's like no. They just.
We're not allowed
I mean,
to
it's like
say
you had
that.
intercourse on the radio by saying nipple. People freak out. There's people freaking out now. You say nipple.
Right. Which is a scientific
You think people freaking
name
out?
for it too.
Okay. Oh yeah, you got some people that
Why are you
think.
freaking out?
There are people.
Listener.
That Fields fellow. I think he went a little too far when he and the Smith woman they started talking about buttery nipples. I don't think it's appropriate.
It's a drink.
And I think, well, you know what? They need to change that name
We'll take it up
because it's
with the,
highly
with
inappropriate
the creator of
to
that
be
drink.
having drinks. Okay?
Named buttery nipple.
First of all, it's highly inappropriate just to have drinks. Okay? And now you're taking these intoxicated people and you're talking about butter on their nipples? No. That's unacceptable.
But
That's
anything sexual is unacceptable.
Oh, yeah.
Think about it. Like I know even as a parent, like when something on TV comes on and your child is like kissing or touching, you want to like, oh, close your eyes.
And then you have to
like what? Why?
And then you have to nickname everything. It's
I
a
don't like that.
tutu.
No, I
You
don't
know?
do that.
That's-
I don't do that.
No.
What is a tutu? Is that what you wear
Tell
in
them what-
ballet?
I don't
Tell
do
them what
that.
their body parts are.
I hate
You
that.
know?
I don't do that.
My sister used
Like-
to say Panapola.
Yeah.
For your,
Or
for your
you're,
vag.
or you're Susie. I mean, come on, what is that? Where did they get that from?
Susie.
Why did they pick on Susan
Panapola.
to do that?
They should call it an Eddie.
You know, and then of course, you know,
Yeah,
and then
Eddie.
you know, for many years, you know, I have a lot of friends whose name is Richard. That's a big off.
Oh.
Well, you know why.
Oh my goodness.
Well, yeah, because I
We're
mean,
not
I'm
allowed
saying,
to say that
well,
word
you can
on the
say,
radio, right?
You can,
Don't
well,
say-
you can
don't
say,
say that
you
word.
can't say,
If
how you doing,
refer-
Dick?
Yeah.
Right.
Like
But
as
you
long as you
can't-
say how you doing. Okay, you make sure you say how you doing,
You'd be talking
but
to
don't say
someone else.
you
Right.
and take on the how you. Okay, just you see how you doing.
Right.
Okay, don't take on the doing and don't take on
Get
the how.
that name from Richard though.
I have. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Dickie, it's very British.
Dickie.
You know, hey, hello. Have you seen Dickie?
We're strange. Humans, yeah.
So it's just all these little,
New one.
and it's just crazy.
We gotta
And the
take a
whole
break.
world, yeah, we gotta take a break. But the whole world is uptight.
Very uptight. And then
Did he say
can be
Dickie?
I won't talk about that anyway. Yeah.
We'll be
When
right
we come
back. Yeah, good. Listen, man, did I tell you that I like your hair?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Which
It
is
meets,
like-
it matches. First of all, it matches your complexion.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a correct statement?
I think so too.
Okay. Is
That's
that
what
how
my
it's designed?
stylist said. No, I like the color, but then it just when it was done, it's like, wow, this matches
Not
my
yet.
complexion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Okay, no more
Muchas
compliments.
gracias.
Yeah, we're talking
So no
about
more
how uptight people are. But you know, the one good thing about the
sorry,
evolution of us over time, and you know, there's a difference between when you look at what's on TV now and everything, between not being uptight and just being crude. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's a very clear distinction,
Yeah.
and I think that people understand that, and they don't get so riled up anymore. You know.
Yeah.
Because they say it. You know, isn't that also freaky? You know, you're driving along. You say it,
Say
but I
these
mustn't
things.
say it.
Yeah. Well,
But you're saying it now while you're in the car.
they say it in their car and
Yeah.
not
Why do you think
broadcasting
he said?
to a
Why do you
through a
think he said
microphone
"dickhead"?
to people.
It's British. That's why.
Yeah. It's so uptight, man. Anyway, no, I won't share that story.
Well, why don't
share
we share?
it. No, because then I'd have to use the word that was used.
Or you
and-
can go.
Huh?
Yeah. Or you can go.
You can
You can go.
leap out your
Yeah.
No, the
Yourself.
story might get nasty, so I don't think I need to censor
So you
myself.
see now you got some people now that
we-
they
well,
drive
now
around
I'm
a cycle.
intrigued.
Oh, they got some
I
people
can tell
driving
you
around
when- I
in
can
a little
tell-
cycle.
I can
I
tell
want to
you
hear a
all-
nasty
I-
story.
I
I didn't
need
know
to-
she's crazy.
I
She
think
nasty.
I think you need to go ahead with the story.
No,
Oh,
you
she
tell
says she
on
got
the break.
to tell us off the air.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I have
Ooh.
to interpret it. You see? On the air. I got to do the interpretation.
Yeah, it's just like when people act uptight about certain things. Oh, I don't say this. I don't do this. I don't do that. And it's like,
Right.
They're the
like
ones.
they be the ones. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I question, well, what do you do when you get home and
Yeah.
you're in certain situations?
Well, all I do is bath.
You know, like, what do you do?
It's a like I need you to see me a certain way.
It's crazy.
Well, that's not, and it's not their fault.
No.
It's how society has
is-
socialized
and
everyone
how you
to
raised
But they're
everyone.
to
breaking
not
that mold.
quote unquote
I-
look at you a certain way because then what is that? That impedes your capacity to progress or to move
Right.
forward or
We have a
they're
lot
gonna-
of
you know,
judgmental
yeah,
people
yeah,
in this
yeah.
town.
Incredible.
Well, I don't
a
think
lot of
I don't think
judgmental
she's
people.
appropriate for the
They're
promotion.
prudes.
As you know, she wears that nose ring, and I don't think the clients.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think the clients would appreciate that.
Like,
Yeah.
what's that? That's why you have people walking around here in three-piece suit and all this, and this climate,
Well-
wearing these stupid outfits, suited up.
I
Or-
went to a funeral
Come
yesterday the
on.
other day, and I just wore a shirt. I just wore a
Yeah,
shirt.
it's a
and
funeral. And the person who you there to see ain't seeing you.
You know what bothers me? When people say, "Oh, what is she wearing? She's too old to be wearing
Yeah.
that." But then when you're like in your, your 20s and stuff like that, well, what's she
Well,
wearing?
yeah,
It's never a good
it's never
time
a
to be
good time.
wearing what you're wearing.
Well, as long as you're
Like,
sick from the CT.
I'm too young to wear it. Now I'm too old to wear it. So when is
Exactly.
it a good time to
I
wear
think
what I'm
once you
wearing?
don't have the CT, I'm not going to say what that is. Once you don't have the CT, everything is cool.
Mouth it.
I actually got that.
You got
What?
I did.
that?
I
You got
did,
that?
and I never
Where'd you
get
get that?
those.
Mine goes somewhere
Yes,
nasty,
I
so you
did.
have to tell me.
Oh.
Okay.
What it is? Hold on, tell me. I feel like. Huh?
Tell her.
Oh, okay, okay.
So
okay,
anyway,
okay,
so
okay.
so
Okay, I was
yeah,
thinking
because
I
under
could
those
work out.
circumstances it's kind of normal. But anyway, so okay, because they didn't have that in the cowboy days. You know what I'm saying? In the cowboy days, they didn't have that time. But anyway, but listen, I want to digress.
Oh.
No. I wanna digress a sec because I want to throw out a condolences to my good friend Stevie Lowe and his siblings. Chris, you know Valerie. No, you
Yes,
don't. You didn't
yes.
like that. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Valerie Lowe,
Uh-huh.
and Rose, who lost their mother a couple of weeks ago.
yes.
She was her service was on Saturday, and let me tell you the part that was really heartwarming. She goes to Trinity Church, Renee Lowe, who I've known since I was 12. Lives right around the corner from where I live now, actually. And I didn't even. She's one of these people. She's a quiet person. I didn't even know she was that religious until I heard about it, because she never pushed that on you, right? But she and this guy in the church, and they're unlikely couple. One is a black gentleman. Renee is a white lady. Must have had this special bond. And when she died, the day she died, he had gotten broken into in his home and was shot 3 times. And he feels that the only reason that he didn't get shot was because he thought he heard her saying,
He didn't get shot? Or
He got shot, but he
killed?
didn't get killed.
You mean,
because
that's
he was
weird.
able to duck. And because he thought she heard him say,
He thought he
don't
heard
go,
her
say, yeah, don't go there right now, or something to that effect. I didn't get the full story. Anyway, he got shot 3 times, and he stated that by hook or by crook, he was going to sing at her funeral. And so, this guy comes up, I'm going to just describe him, dreadlocks, and he sings the most beautiful version. I got it on tape. I'll let you hear it, of this song, which is not completely familiar to me because I don't go to church, but it's just a beautiful song. But, he said, his hand was, I'm going to say his name. His name is Irvin Moxie. And, it was just a very, very moving moment. But another thing I got to say about my people at Trinity Church, 48 minutes. Yeah,
In and out.
I got you. Okay? People, when I was leaving, some of the brothers that was coming in, they thought it was only going to be halfway through.
I like quick funerals.
Yeah. I was very respectful,
I
very
like
quick.
services,
Yeah.
period.
No drag out, long
drawn
thing,
out.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I just thought I'd bring, because it was such a moving, experience, and this voice, man. I say this guy he needs to be discovered. It's just,
He was that good.
it was that good. Yeah. So just throwing out a condolences there. But by the way, our guest this afternoon, we got to do a couple of little business things. There's going to be Algernon Cargill, who's the director of aviation in the Ministry of Tourism and Aviation. And I got a couple of little things. We got Father's Day sale by Kelly's. Spoil your super dad. Am I in that category?
Well, Candace has that.
I'm asking you again, Smith.
I wouldn't know. I don't see you in no daddy capacity.
You don't see me in that. Okay.
You are super dad.
Okay, you know what?
Spoil your super dad this
you
year
are
with
good
our-
to her. So yeah.
Spoil your super dad this year with our Father's Day sale. I should get on the phone now and ask her anyway. Spoil your super dad
Like,
this
who
year
is this?
with our Father's Day sale at Kelly's House and Home. Give Dad the treat he deserves. Our sale starts Thursday, June 8th, through Saturday, June 15th, with 20% off selected toolkits, sets, luggage, fishing in, and diving or
I
camping
know
gear.
they fishing.
No.
Yeah, but
Fishing.
except on net items. Visit our Facebook page for our Father's Day giveaways, including a grill. They always got to give the father a grill so they can cook the food for the people.
Yeah, that's good.
Baseball caps. That's what we.
What?
Baseball caps and more. Share the love. Say grill, baseball caps, and more.
Tools.
I can tell you about my
want?
experience.
What do y'all
Share the
want?
love with our Kelly's House
know,
and Home
right?
Father's Day sale June 8th through 15th.
Oh,
Grab a
okay.
copy of our June
I
flyer
just
for
wish
top
we would do
saving
away with all
all
those
month
holidays.
long. Let me tell you something.
stop
I went
it
to the
all.
mall.
Hold on. Shouldn't you do all the sponsors?
Well, I can do that. I can do a list. I just wanted to, because it's Father's Day. I got to list them all. I went to the mall in the States, right? What would the mall name? Dadeland.
I was going to say, how are you supposed to know?
Dadeland.
You could be anywhere.
I am telling you, they have 0 shops in there for any male over 25 years old. Period.
Do they have a Macy's?
Yeah.
You go in Macy's and get something. Yeah.
You ever see the crap in there?
The crap?
Some crap, man.
No, we have some nice stuff, babe.
We?
But
You on Macy's now? You say
I say we.
yeah. You say me.
Oh,
Yeah. So
You
you
know, someone
use a
always
Macy's
says
now?
that. I was
Well, come on
like,
something.
maybe somebody
Go-
else in my head.
Hey,
We.
So let me
We.
get some deals from you.
I do have shares
Okay.
in Macy's.
Yeah. So when I do the catalog,
I
I
do.
can just tick them off and give it to you. Eh?
No.
All right. So anyway, I went in there. It's just, first of all, it's too overwhelming. But again, they got a section for men. Stuff all over the place. Anyway, it's
But let me ask
they
you.
ain't got no mall for no man.
Let me ask you and Kendrick, because you're not always on this air talking about everybody always gets you all the same gifts for Father's Day. What the heck do you guys want?
When I say
What is it that you want? Kendrick, I need
you.
you to please come on the mic, honest to God, because shopping for men is very difficult.
I think Ed
Y'all
wants
don't
a-
want the ties, you
I
don't
think
want the
Ed
hat, you don't want
wants
the grill, you don't want the
a yearly
tools,
pass to Fusion.
you don't want no cologne.
I
Okay,
could
so
do
what
that.
do you want?
That's
Come,
a good
come,
one.
come,
I like
come.
that, Candy.
Yeah.
What do you want?
Yeah.
Come on, you.
Big television.
Candace.
Oh, okay,
Are you
a big
listening?
TV,
Yeah.
and if you
I need
already
an
have a
80
big
inch at
TV,
least.
then what?
At least 80.
What Can said?
He said a big TV.
Yeah.
Okay, so if
How
you
many
already
TVs?
have that, then what? What else?
Candy came up with a good gift.
Yeah.
Hold on. What else? See? Y'all don't even
no,
know.
she came up with a good gift, a yearly pass to Fusion. I get to use
Which
that.
he will.
You will use that.
Oh.
What else?
Gym membership. Yeah.
Okay, gym
And
membership.
$250,000, but that's okay.
I know who knew that.
Oh, but some of us can get it. You can ask. You ain't got to get it. I asked for plenty things when I
Would
was
you
a kid.
take 100,000?
I'll take the 100.
Would you take 50,000?
I'll take the 50.
I got you.
Okay.
For 50, but not
When you
250,000.
win the lottery. eh?
No,
'Cause
you
I-
get that now.
Oh, because
Yeah.
I could put in my
Yeah.
order too then.
The
What kind of trick
contract,
is
the
this?
kind
I don't
of
know.
contract I need you to sign again. But do you want this money?
I'm EYN. I can tell you that.
EYA. Well, that's a part of the contract.
EIO.
Three.
Okay? so anyway,
Why is she writing that down?
she does that. She writes things down. But anyway, so you're so slack, man. You sound slack. You laugh slack. Okay.
You slack. You
No,
say that.
but listen to me. I know that I would like. What are the conditions on this 50 Gs? Because I got some plans, man. I can get that.
want a break?
Tell you what,
Oh,
you can if you give me 30 now before Father's Day, I'll take that. Like
with
in
the
advance.
contract? With the,
I don't
said I'll
want no
give you
contract. That's not a
50,000.
gift. You don't give contracts
No.
with gifts.
It has some
Proud of that.
stipulations.
That's a contract.
You
I
want
want
the
a
money
gift.
or what?
No, what are the stipulations ahead of time?
I
I'm
can't
not
tell
gonna-
you on the air.
Okay, well, all right. You can initial it out.
EIO, number one.
No. Anyway, well, maybe we'll talk. Anyway, so yeah, we'll talk. We got it. We got the news.
No,
We got the news.
no, we have like 3 more
Because I need
minutes.
to know what this contract
We have 3
is.
more minutes.
Yeah.
No, listen. I don't know what you wanted to talk about, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I have to congratulate this young man. He's a reporter over at The Guardian, Laurent
Okay.
Roll, right?
Uh-huh.
I see these panhandlers, I'm sure many of us see these panhandlers all throughout New Providence. You've seen this woman before if you've been on Nassau Street. She's been there for years. And so I like
Let me
when
see the
reporters
picture.
do a lot of digging and just basically bring these stories
Yeah.
that we pass these people every single day, and you always kind of want to know about their background. At least
Yeah.
I always question their background. How did they get on the streets? What led them into this, in the situation that they're in. And so I really enjoyed his digging to at least stop and talk to these people and bring their stories out.
Oh goodness.
It was a really
on
good story.
I follow this account on Instagram called Humans of New York.
Oh, yes. Yes.
It's almost like they should do
Yes.
a Humans of Nassau or Humans
Yes.
of, and that would, that's what that reminded me
it
of.
does. I remember watching something on YouTube. They were talking about how the homeless, and ever since my trip to California, it's like my whole mind has been obsessed with this, but like how homeless people deal with, and I'm going to say this, right, especially the women, how they deal with their periods being on the streets and how they deal when they're sick and all that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. And it is one of the most fascinating documentaries that I've ever watched in my entire life. It just it makes you feel so appreciative, so grateful for what you have. And your heart, you can't help but have your heart bleed for somebody who's going through that. You just
Yeah.
can't. So if any of you are listening, you have an opportunity, please go on YouTube and check that document.
Say it again. What is it?
It's like the homeless. You have to kind of like put in like the parameters. I can't remember the exact words. So how the homeless women deal with their periods.
Oh, okay.
You have a missing page?
Yeah, there's some stuff over here, I think.
Okay.
But that's something to consider, huh?
Yeah, no, it's good stuff, man. It's well, listen, we've said often, and we've never
that's the
held back. Yeah, we've never held back on this, right? Is that there is so much more to be written about other than politics and crime.
Yeah, and that he's proven that.
Okay, and it's not boring.
No, it's not.
I mean, it's just so much more, and we've said and let me tell you something. So we say often that we find that there's a kind of a journalistic lethargy, right? That people it's easy for them just to get the crime report or to listen to what the politician say at a speech, right? Well, actually, this proves the point, right? Because the fact that this young man can go out and do this, right? Mm-hmm. You can, as small as this island is, you can go and find, if you got, how many people, Rogan Smith, and you were a journalist, you are a journalist, but you were a practicing journalist, right? How many people get in their car and just drive around looking for a story?
It doesn't happen as often as okay. Can I say something? There are journalists. I have journalism friends who work for Eyewitness News who do that. Okay. Because their boss has this mantra that news is happening outside. You don't be in here. So you got to give them props for doing that. And I see them in their little van going all over town. Now I have to kind of balance it because there are times when you have a very, very small news team and you have radio shows, news. You have a news cycle that's rapidly turning over, and so you don't have the opportunity to do that. We've had journalists on this show who have told you how difficult it is. I know.
I mean, but what I'm saying to you is this, and I'm not talking about creating something every day, because you see this story here, this isn't time sensitive.
Yeah, it's not.
Okay.
That could go
so
anytime.
What I'm saying is, if you spend a half hour, an hour driving around, right? It isn't that you're going to develop that story that day, but you can start to develop the story, because the best stories are the stories that take time.
Yeah.
You can't write any in-depth story in 2 hours before a deadline. All you're going to have is a speech and a report or whatever the deal is.
Yeah.
And that's why you're going to get sound bites.
Yeah.
But if you decide I'm going to at least once a week put out something in depth, you can do it. And that's all I'm saying.
It's a lot of good stuff out there.
We're going to take a break, and we will be right back. We're going to bring in Mr. Cargill. I don't know if he's here yet.
Candy.
We'll talk to Candy first, and we'll go from there. Talk to you later. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here, along with Rogan Smith. Candy is with us. We're just, it's a Monday. It's hot. So we're just shooting the breeze. We're just shooting the breeze. We got to say the sponsors, huh?
Yeah. No, go ahead.
You can say the sponsors. I'm going to say Sunshine Insurance, Arawak Homes. I'm going to say Kentucky Fried Chicken and Burger King. I'm going to say John Bull Business Center. Of course, Kelly's House and Home. We're also going to say Wendy's and Coca-Cola and Subway. And, of course, we must always say Superwash. So I want to say thank you to them, and we got a new sponsor, Atlantis, the Cove, Sip Sip.
What?
They have they got a special running. I got to read the liner in a couple of minutes. On Saturdays, go over to Sip Sip and enjoy some extremely good boiled fish. Okay, extremely good, and the ambiance is nice.
Do they have
Julie, I don't think they have stew fish, but Julie, Julie Lightborn. Julie, she runs Sip Sip in Arbor Island. So Sip Sip opened up a new, an establishment about a year or 2 years ago, at the Cove, and they have great menu. But I had that boiled fish, man. It was like, whoa, it's just something different was in that, but it tastes good.
The whole Atlantis I enjoy. It's always I had a friend from Jamaica come over.
Jamaica?
Yeah, man. From Houston. And she was just blown away. Like, that's one place I can honestly say, no matter how many times I've been across that bridge to Atlantis, it still has the same magic to me. Like, it never feels like, just going to Atlantis. There's always something. I'm just proud of it, honestly. It's just a beautiful property.
Thank you much, Rogan.
No, seriously.
The Gullah girl.
We
My
were on
Gigi.
on the throne. Keep that throne there, child.
The Tron?
The
I
throne.
saw
I love
that.
that. You saw my pictures? Oh man, I
They have
love
a new
that.
thing out there now. It's on the Royal Deck, I think. It's like a location. It's a heart with a swing. Because
Where
where
it is?
Bahamas. Oh Lord.
Oh, the child, be going.
Yay?
It's a Bahamas
You
of
need
heart.
that
It's a
picture
photo
on
I
op.
need that
Hey.
picture.
It's a photo op scenario. You know. So
Where it is?
It's on the pool deck, so you'd have to have access to the pool decks.
Oh.
Well,
I
she
mean,
knows
that's
she
easy.
will get that.
I gotta go down.
Gigi?
Just-
I,
Gigi,
I have
get it?
contacts beyond this gentleman.
Gigi? Well, I can make sure I shut them down. Gallagher. Gallagher, what that t-shirt say?
Good life.
Oh, the good life.
Oh, okay.
Good
Let me
life.
see.
Good life.
Good life. Colorful.
Right?
Khalifa.
It's a good life. God is good. You see that? G-O-D.
Mm-hmm.
Boom.
Oh,
Yeah, man. So anyway, so Candy, what's happening? We have Candy with us. She
Well,
has
yes,
the chain with
quickly.
multiple circles.
Do we have our music?
no.
Yay!
I told him not
We
to.
planned it. We planned it. No, no.
Well,
Turn it up. Turn it up.
would you shake into? You
Yeah,
can't
that
hear
ain't even
it.
the song.
Don't matter.
Yeah.
It on?
Oh.
Yay!
Yes, is in the parking lot. I don't know if he knows to come up, but I hope you see him coming.
Well,
He's coming.
very quickly.
Like
I wanted to bring up the topic last week in the paper, or this incident of private school administrator
Go get him.
Uh-huh.
issuing a quote unquote severe discipline on a child.
Corporal punishment.
You're right.
I'm
and
not
the
a
parent-
supporter. Huh?
Go on.
I don't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, and the parent, shared the picture of what, the result of the lashing, and it just sparked this whole big conversation about like just doing away
Corporal
with
punishment. I didn't know it was
beating
still
in
around.
school. Neither did I.
I mean, I think, listen, I'm not one of these people who are opposed to spankings, right? But I just think it's an anachronism in this, for 2019 to be in a
mean, it
school
existed
as
when
a
I
as
was-
a as a mode of discipline. I mean, I think, well, you had a lot better standard of child coming out in terms of discipline
Right.
and all that. But it just seems so kind of like out of place now.
No, and it's very much in place.
But apparently, and they have rules around it.
yeah.
Because I saw Jeff Lloyd on TV,
Right.
And he was saying, like,
Addressing.
the rules are that if you're going to have corporal punishment, it must be administered by an administrator, and then there must be a administrator who witnesses. It's a whole system.
It's yeah.
But I just thought it was anachronistic that it just for a school environment, because you see, here's the differential. It seems to me that you're going to apply spanking or any kind of corporal punishment that's strictly parental. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Once you outside that parental thing, then there's no grounds, in my view, for that.
yeah.
It's just because you don't know what you're dealing with.
It's just I mean, we talked about beating and spanking before, and I mean it's just especially and you only see, the thing is you only see spankings and stuff happening in, like, I mean, I hate to say it,
Public
like
school?
Christian schools.
Oh, Christian? Was this a Christian school?
They do them in public schools too. over here.
Where was the school?
This one
with
was a
the person?
private school,
Okay.
a private religious-based
Well,
Well,
school.
it was in other. Well, I wasn't going to say what I was
But I
say.
mean, but even in public
Hey?
schools, I saw a comment.
Yeah, right.
In
one over the next.
I saw a comment on Facebook, and in this this
The
lady
dogs ain't handling
said,
that.
like, in public school, like they that's what they do because that is what the students are used to receiving at home. And so when you try to use different types of discipline
Like
on
timeout?
that child, it's chaotic. Like, it's like they don't respond to that.
Yeah,
And
it's
so
just
they
it's
just
just a bizarre
do,
thing.
Yeah, they
was
just
that
do
the
what.
beating?
Why are you looking like that,
Well,
Ken?
especially to the extent.
Why would you?
What'd you say? Hold on.
Why would you make a statement like that to say because they're in public school they're used to being disciplined that way?
Yeah.
He's
no.
saying that that's what they said, right?
Right.
yeah.
Yes, that is a comment that someone's. Yes, that. Yeah.
Like
Hold on,
these
hold
children
on.
ain't
Sorry,
used to
'cause
know.
I stepped out of the room. Somebody made a comment and said what?
Yeah.
That
Well, first of all, someone had gotten disciplined.
Well, I
There
know
was a
that,
viral
yeah,
thing,
uh-huh.
right? And now what she's saying is that someone made a statement that essentially, the whole thing. Well, that's the only what that's all they can respond to.
Yeah.
You know that kind of thing.
yeah,
You got to talk to these children hard.
Yeah, I don't like that.
No.
And I'm not a fan
Yeah.
of the.
But what I'm saying
corporal
is
punishment.
beatings happen in private school, and public school. Private school is not.
But when you have a child who comes home with marks, then you kind of know this is not. And if it's just kind of, it doesn't make me feel comfortable.
But why
No,
does it have to be
but-
that type of punishment too, though? I
Well,
mean,
that's what I'm saying. I don't feel comfortable
When
with
nobody
that
beating my
outside
child.
the parental
Yeah,
Right.
scope.
precisely.
Even
now,
that's
with
questionable,
that-
but at least,
Yeah.
And so there's another like an angle with that saying if the parent knew that this is the policy that the school has,
they
why
signed
would
on
you
to
send
it?
your child to
I don't
this
know
school?
if anyone know if that policy exists because that policy is somewhere under the books.
Yeah.
You don't expect that. Then
Yeah.
But okay.
do you read the policies?
Now, this is the thing.
That's a
I
good
know
question.
when I was in high school, that is what happened.
I don't
Children
know.
got beating.
Not in my high school, that never happened.
Disciplined.
Wow.
Not
But
that I was aware of.
now, unless that has changed, they have gone in and physically changed and taken out and stuff like that. If it's still there from that time.
In high school, when
It's-
they used to beat with the cane.
yeah.
And
Okay.
I told y'all when I was in Our Ladies how I was traumatized because
Well, after I think about it, I did get a couple of
yeah,
comments.
I bet you did.
From
From the
in
nuns.
school?
You
From the
had
nuns.
Mo, you
From
had to
the
get beat.
Not in high school, the nuns.
The nun beat
The
me.
nuns, well, they into that. They was into that.
Boy, they was into that.
They beat you. They put like, but
You
they
see
did
what I
things like
mean?
put out your hand.
But I didn't get the hand. I got it on
Get
my
licks
butt.
in your
And I
hand.
got it with my skirt up
Fellas
in
used
the
to
front
put
of
their-
my classmates.
Yeah.
So
Your skirt
those,
lifted up.
and over her knee with my skirt over my head
So
and my
panty?
panties exposed to the children in the class. And I was
It's
telling
appalling.
Candy,
Yeah,
but I was telling Candy, I said, you know how bad it was? Like, the kids who were inside the class witnessing this, usually you'll have somebody who'll be
Yeah.
like laughing, haha, not a peep.
because
Because
they
they just
didn't
were,
want to get that.
it wasn't even about that. It
Because
was like, it was just so
Shocking.
mortifying and so shocking. It was like, you did this to this person? Not a soul said anything, not even afterwards, not
We
even
got-
weeks later.
We got ears wrung. The nuns like that. Till
Oh,
you on
they like to
till you on
twist
your
your
tippy
pinch
toe.
you.
Till you on your tippy toe. You can't because you're small.
Pinch.
You're short to them. So they you tipping together because they
I don't know.
They get the ruler on the hand.
Yeah.
Fellas I know used to put book in their pants.
So when they get beat?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's notebooks.
But this whole beating thing, like, especially children, why do we feel that it is okay to beat children? It's like, and we will defend, like, oh, there are degrees and levels
Yeah, I
of
still
beating.
see-
There
I
are
still
no
see-
levels
Yes, there
to
are
beating.
Yes, there are
That's
levels.
like
See, once
saying
you say
there's
beating-
levels to
See,
beating
when
a
you say
woman.
beating- see, when you
See,
say beating,
there are.
hold on. When you say beating, that gives a couple. Like for instance, if you spank someone, I know you're gonna say it's beating. But,
That's
Spank
totally
a child.
different.
Spank a
Because
child.
you're not going to spank your wife.
Well, no, but no one is doing
You're not going to
spanking.
spank.
Maybe
You're right.
you
You're not
will.
No, that's beating. That's
no,
beating.
No,
There's no
I mean,
degrees of beating. That's beating.
Right. Why are there no degrees of beating for a woman, but there are degrees to beating a child?
Because you can put your child over the line and give you a little
No.
spank and
Think
say,
about
"Don't do
that.
that again."
Think
and you
about
can,
that.
it can be a thing.
You can't just
Because
say,
my
"Let me
spouse
stop my
is different
wife
from
for
my
saying
chi-
something silly," or
but
"Let
my-
me slap you up."
But my spouse
that's-
is different from my child. My
But
spouse
see,
is different.
exactly, because your child is. We think that that's the last bit of power we have over someone.
I disagree.
A child,
Look,
it's almost like we possess our children,
I think. Sorry, Edward. I think.
and that's like a power thing.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if it's so much of a power thing, so
It's not
much
a
as
power thing.
it's
discipline.
It's discipline. So not Candy. Okay, this is where me and you will disagree,
Singapore
right? Because
beat you if you drop
always
the gun.
think that everybody can be treated the same way, and they can't. Okay, so some children respond to punishment. I'm taking something away from you.
How is hitting
Edward
somebody?
always says when his parents told him he couldn't go to scouts, that was devastating for him. Some kids respond to that sort of treatment, and some children are just bad. And no matter what you do, you take away their privileges. You tell them face the wall. You do all this. They still don't get it. They
But
only
hitting
respond to
them is
that.
going to make them do it.
Look, Candy, here's the deal. Without,
Yeah, it
without,
does in
with
some
an
instances.
without an in-depth argument about it, right? Here's the deal. You know that there was a type of behavior that resulted, or the result was a certain type of behavior when you disciplined. It's positive and negative reinforcement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's scary because there are lines. And it's all
Yeah.
about, that's why, Jeff Lloyd was saying you have to have an administrator and then you have to witness to the administrator. It's like a process.
Mm.
You go to Singapore and you graffiti, you get flogged.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So,
I
okay?
understand.
And guess what? Guess
I'm
what?
not naive
Guess
to-
what? They ain't graffitiing.
Exactly.
Guess what?
They
They
ain't
ain't
doing that,
graffitiing.
'cause they
If
know.
you go to Saudi Arabia,
Oh,
if you
geez.
steal, they cut
your
off your
hand
hand.
Yeah, well,
and you know what? The theft rate is low.
Because you only got 2 times the thief.
Okay? Okay. And by the way, only one time, because in Saudi, you eat with one hand,
Yeah, and then
you wipe your butt with another hand. And the biggest thing is when they cut off your eating hand.
And then it's like so. No, for real. It's
Y'all
true.
don't stop, man.
I'm telling you.
True,
I
this is
know.
true.
So you know it.
You know how disrespectful.
You know.
Don't
You better
stand
bring that curry, otherwise I can give you a beating.
This is not a funny matter.
No, it's not. But no, I don't approve of it in schools. I'm going to
Yeah.
be honest with you.
Yeah.
The reason being
At
is
the very least, it should
at
be
the very-
banned from.
Yeah. I don't.
schools.
It's clear cut.
I mean,
to
that
me.
would be a step in the right direction. Especially for this society, at least in the schools. Let's
Are you
just
an
do
all or
away.
nothing person?
What do you mean? Like
I
an all
mean-
in everything?
No,
or
she's
in
nothing.
this,
That's all. It's all. It's just
You
nothing.
just don't believe in. Okay,
no,
if
I'm
for
not
this
all or
one,
nothing.
is there ever a reason for a parent to spank a child?
I don't think. No,
If I go-
I think
There's never a reason.
no.
Stop that.
I don't think so. I think even when you said that, there are just some children that need it or that are rude, I think that there's always a root cause to something, and people don't have the patience to find out the root cause of why
No,
this
because
child
you're not
or
psychologists.
Exactly.
that's fine. We'll send your child to
No,
somebody.
someone who is living in
you getting
Padolia
too
so
far.
they got no
You
psychologist
got a
money.
psychologist money. You being unrealistic,
or
boy.
what
Listen.
I'm saying, okay, so all
I
right,
get
so I
some-
can't afford to do this for my child, so I'm just gonna.
Candy, you living in
What
La
I'm
La
no,
Land.
Yeah,
I'm not
that's La La
living in
Land.
La La. What is
So I
what is
can't
so
afford to-
difficult about not hitting your child?
It's not that
What
it's not
concept
difficult.
about I don't understand.
It's not about that, Candy. It's about the fact that you, as the parent, from me, you reserve the right to take the
discipline your
measures
child.
to discipline your child. I honestly don't think parents first. I'm not speaking for every
I was just
parent.
gonna
I'm not
say,
going to
don't
speak for
say
every
that.
parent, right? But I would like. I've seen my
That's
sister.
people's first response.
I've seen that happens. You're right. So I stand corrected. There are people who are just impatient and they just don't know how to deal with their kids, right? But I've found for the vast majority of people, I have lots of friends who have kids. My sister has daughters, and it's always a speaking to. It's always I'm going to punish you. I'm going to do. When there's a cut ass that ensues,
You said it.
it's because. That child
She's allowed?
really just don't listen. They ain't trying to hear nothing mommy got to say or whatever. And you know what happens in those instances? They already know, okay, I ain't trying to go down that road
So
again.
in other words, you wouldn't go down the sedation road.
Sedation.
You wouldn't get like a tranquilizer
no.
gun.
Anyway,
You would get a tranquilizer gun, a trank.
And that gun would you say make them disappear?
No, that's the disintegration. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a trank gun. Tranquilizer, put them to sleep.
I want a disintegration gun.
No. The thing is, you imagine a kid, right? You've seen this happen. You know it's happened. It's happened to you, where you're a parent, you're doing something, and you see a kid reach for something like putting their hand on fire or something, and you go, stop that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have anything wrong with that.
That's an immediate reaction. It's not you take them to the side and wail on them for 3 hours.
No.
You just stop that.
That's
Okay.
I mean that's not going to make the child stop. They're going to keep
It
going.
does.
Oh, yeah?
In a lot of
Some
cases,
children
it
will
does.
stop.
Well,
Yeah.
No. I
Some
don't
children.
think so.
Okay. We gotta wind
All
up.
right.
So, see.
Y'all keep beating your children.
Beat our
Stop that. See, you're not gonna do that again.
And we just, have a bunch of, adults walking around with some issues.
Did you ever
How
get?
about
Did you
that?
ever get
Issues when
spanking?
they ain't get beat too.
Did you ever? Excuse me.
What's
Did
that?
you ever get a spanking?
I think I did. I can't remember.
So
sure you
you're
did.
issued up.
Huh?
You're issued.
No, I honestly can't recall me getting spanked.
Okay. Well, I think.
Consistently and often,
No,
or
but that's the
whatever
point.
it is.
It may not have been consistent.
I don't.
It might have been at
but
certain
I don't
moments.
remember. I honestly don't remember.
I'd
I'm
call my
really
man.
a good child. What are you
I'm
talking
gonna call,
about?
but I know. I'd
was-
call the big L.
I was an awesome child.
Yeah, because you told me some
What?
things. I can tell. I can tell
No,
the big L.
Joel,
I can
don't
tell the
get-
big
I
L
never
now.
used
What
to
you
get
tell me?
beaten.
I didn't get beaten now. She did that. Bring her here. Bring the belt. We gotta go. We got our guest.
All
We gotta
right.
go. Thank you, Candy. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here, along with Gullah Gal. You should use that. But you have the Bahamian Gal.
This Bahamian gal.
Yeah.
I mean Gullah Gal.
But when you if you decide to travel, you use that while you're traveling.
I'll
They
use
might be
this
more.
Bahamian gal.
Can you use that? Well, you
I
know,
have a
all right.
Bahamian
Tell you
gal.
what. Let's be a compromise.
You be Gullah.
Do Bahamian
boy.
Gal, aka Gullah Gal. You can do that. You gotta have an
You be
AKA.
Gullah boy.
All right.
Gullah boy.
Yeah, but it doesn't go with a GG, you know. Bahamian boy goes BB. But anyway, our guest this afternoon is Algernon Cargill, who is the Director of Aviation, the Ministry of Tourism. There's a lot of confusion, so I want to try to clear that up because you got the Director General That's Captain Benaby.
Correct.
Charles Benaby down at the Civil Aviation. And then you have this side of things. So one of these things you can do is explain what is the differential between what you do and what Captain Benaby does.
Well, Captain Benaby is the Director General of Bahamas Civil Aviation Authority, and that's the regulatory arm of aviation. The Minister of Tourism and Aviation has a portfolio that encompasses both tourism and aviation.
Okay.
And so what he found out during his first 18 months or so in office was that he was spending more time on tourism and less time on aviation. So he wanted to recruit someone that he could pass over his aviation portfolio to. And the aviation portfolio actually includes the BCAA, Bahamas Air, the air transport licensing, the air traffic controllers, as well as all of the silos of the aviation department. And that's why he created this job, the Director of Aviation. And the director more or less manages the ministerial portfolio on his behalf for all of the various departments of the aviation sector of his portfolio. Airport Authority, for example, would fall under that. NAD falls under that. And so, in other words, he has a Director General of Tourism and a Director of Aviation, and his portfolio encompasses both, and he more or less straddles between both sectors.
Okay. So now, you've been hearing more and more about the aviation sector, and there's a whole range of things that you hear about from time to time. One is, of course, domestic aviation hacking and all that type of stuff. Then you hear about the expansion of the aviation registry. Then you hear about more airlift, air safety, the flyover. There's all those things.
Right, all of those things fall under the Department of Aviation. So what we've done is we've created a Department of Aviation, and the Department of Aviation will be managing all of these projects that you mentioned or initiatives, as well as the building arm of the government in terms of building these airports throughout the Bahamas. So you have a small team, but a small team is more or less an oversight team, as well as a tactical team that will be managing the construction of these airports, as well as the various departments within the Ministry of Tourism and Aviation, as that I mentioned previously. So, for example, the aircraft registry. That's a very important strategic initiative for the government, not only because it puts us, parallel to a lot of other developed countries in terms of aviation, but it'll be a huge revenue source for the government when we actually launch our aircraft registry. And we've actually signed an MOU with a global consultant who will be working with the Ministry of Tourism and Aviation to create this aircraft registry and help us to improve many parts of the operations at the BCAA and other sectors within the aviation sector. And the goal really is to have this revenue arm, have the Bahamas competing with other jurisdictions that have established aircraft registries, and create another revenue source for the government.
So I know we've talked about boat registries from time to time, over and over again in this country. And the advantage to a boat is that it's out in international waters, and that it conducts a lot of its business in international waters. And so they have these kind of bizarre tax structures, right? Is it the same thing for aircraft?
Pretty much the same thing. The Bahamas will have its own aircraft registry where we will be registering aircrafts on behalf of pilots globally. And for many reasons, they would want to have their aircraft domiciled in the Bahamian jurisdiction. And similar to the maritime registry that we have, that's an independent arm of the government, and I think I heard contributed several $1 million to the Treasury. The aircraft registry will function the same way.
You can get commercial airlines to do that as well?
Of course. Anyone who wants to register their airline or domicile their airline under Bahamian registry will be able to subscribe to this service.
It used to be, it existed because, I heard, Algernon, that, the reason, you go into Rock Sound, right? And Rock Sound has a runway that is capable of holding a 747.
Correct.
And the reason is because Pan Am, back in the day, used to have the planes delivered to the Bahamas. Okay? So that once it was delivered to the Bahamas, they didn't have to pay certain levels of taxes because it was domiciled here. Is that accurate?
That is true, and that aircraft really is an anomaly in the overall inventory. Airport is an anomaly in the overall inventory of airports, in that the runway is far too big for the market it serves.
Right.
And this is a good segue into some of the things we're doing in the department. For example, we have plans in the final stage to build a $43 million airport in Exuma.
$43 million?
$43 million.
Not 4.3.
No, $43 million airport in Exuma.
On the current site where the airport is right now.
The same location, the existing terminal will remain, but be used for police purposes. But in terms of the airport terminal, a completely virgin site will be developed for the construction of a $43 million airport.
So that Exuma warrants that demand?
Absolutely. Exuma is...
I hear they're jamming.
Exuma, well, the four basic airports will be New Providence Airport, LPIA,
Abaco,
LTIA, Exuma, and North Eleuthera. Those are the four biggest airports busiest airports in the Bahamas. And our plans include further expansion to the LTIA in Abaco, as well as the construction of a $40+ million airport in Exuma, and a duplicate airport in North Eleuthera. Because if you ever been to North Eleuthera on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, you'll be surprised to see the amount of traffic in North Eleuthera versus the facilities there. So we've hired Stantec, which is a global consulting group, and this was hired during the last administration. And
they're the ones who did the design for the LPIA. I think, right? Stantec.
Yeah, they were involved in that. But what they're doing now for us is they actually they completed a study of all the airports in the Bahamas, and we've categorize some airports as build, some airports as convert, and some airports as do nothing. And those airports that I mentioned, particularly Exuma, North Eleuthera, and Abaco, that's where the real activity is growing in the Bahamas, apart from the growth here at LPIA. And we're going to have a $40+ million airport also in North Eleuthera. We have a separate set of challenges there in that the Eleuthera land is owned by the Commonwealth. And so
the what?
The Commonwealth, descendants of the Queen, land was be given to them, and is managed through the Commonwealth. And so we negotiated with
some people who are the Commonwealth?
Yeah, we met with them a couple of times, of course. They introduced themselves young,
a member
young,
of the Commonwealth?
Yes. But in any event, they own the land. Yeah. So the government has to negotiate with this group to get about 550 acres to build this airport in North Eleuthera, pretty much in the same site. There are some challenges we're having there, but we remain committed to that partnership.
Rogan, you don't have no comment, Jay.
No, I ain't got none there. What is the estimated timeline for the one in Exuma?
Well, that is currently out for expression of interest for the contractors. We had a project team meeting today. We want to break ground on August at an airport.
So it'll be a privately funded thing, or what?
It will be funded partly by the IDB, as well as a public-private partnership to generate the additional revenues or cash flow required to build an airport. We're talking about $18 to $20 million in IDP, and the additional will be funded through strategic initiatives.
I mean, what's the revenue capacity on those things?
Well, there are many who believe the airport is overbuilt. It's being overbuilt.
It's being overbuilt.
Being overbuilt, but it's being built for the future. When you build an airport, you build on 20 years projected growth. And based on the current traffic in Exuma, as well as the seating capacity in the airport, we don't think it's overbuilt.
So let me sorry.
The fees obviously won't be enough to sustain it over a period of time. Right. But with the growth that's poised for Exuma, we expect that airport to be able to take care of itself through
that's
cash
like a
flow.
hub almost, eh?
Well, that's the medium-term plan to create a hub, so that Exuma could be a service center for some of the other islands instead of every flight having to come into Nassau or even Grand Bahama, which used to be or Abaco. We want to use some of the southern islands to create a hub, and that runway can actually accommodate the large jumbo jets. So,
okay, I just want to ask one quick question. The issue of the Bahamas having so many airports in one island community. Take Eleuthera. Okay?
Yes.
3 airports. Cat Island, 2 airports. I mean, you're not driving to the airport that often.
Right.
Can't you have one in the middle?
That's exactly
just,
that's exactly what our plan is. For example, we have 28 airports throughout the Bahamas. And we were to develop every single airport to the standard of Exuma. Obviously, we will not be able to afford it. So we are looking at consolidating some airports, converting airports to FBOs, which would be like which is a fixed base operation. Like, I don't want to say the name, but
okay, well I do.
but there are two of them at LPIA.
Yeah.
So Odyssey or Jet Aviation, they will be the managers of the airport. I'm running the airport. So in other words, they'll collect the revenues. They have a arrangement with the government through some sort of profit sharing initiative. But we don't have to find the cash flow to redevelop the airports.
Yeah.
And for example, the airport in Treasure Key. We would like to find a partner to be able to convert that airport into a fixed base operation. That's the actual recommendation from the Stantec report. I'm jumping quickly to Deadman's Key. This has been in the news also. We've gone out to find an architect, engineers, etc., to build a new airport in Deadman's Key, Long Island. And the plan there is to convert Deadman's Key to port of entry, which will be a major international port for Long Island. Stella Maris Airport will still be there, but there are many limitations with that airport. So instead of spending more money developing an airport that the government does not own at Stella Maris, we want to build an airport redevelop that airport in Deadman's Key. And that project will hopefully start this year also.
Right, and you have
No. I was just saying for those airports that you said that you do nothing to those ones. Are those because they're just not bringing in a lot of revenue, or you just don't feel the need to? I mean, what is the rationale
many
behind
reasons. Revenue, with the expenditure versus the return. I had a call coming here about one of the airports in the Southern Islands to spend some money repurposing that airport. But really, if we don't have the cash to do it, we can't be all things to all people. So we have to focus on where we can get the most bang for the buck, where do the tourists come. And yes, the airports in the Southern Bahamas are important. I don't want to say they're not, but nonetheless, we have to look at where is it if we have a limited amount of money to spend, where we're going to get the biggest bang for the buck. And those airports in the Southern Bahamas convert those to FBOs and allow those to be public-private partnerships with an FBO type operation.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. I want to talk to you about, when we build these airports in the Family Islands, that you don't just build a square building, but you do something with some sort of sense of place. Doesn't always have to be air conditioned. I'm not saying you don't want that, but you want a thing that looks, when you get there, it's welcoming. Not just a shack. We'll be right back. Once again, our guest this afternoon is Algernon Cargill, who is the Director of Aviation in the newly formed, if that's correct, Department of Aviation. So I've had a lot of opportunity, Algernon, to travel to the Family Islands. I go to Abaco, go to Exuma, I go to Eleuthera, some other islands. And it always seems to me that there's a wasted opportunity, right? A, to create airports that, while not necessarily grand, give a sense of place. The way that it's done is aesthetically pleasing, as opposed to the square building with asphalt shingle roof that everyone has. Okay? And to create a scenario where, often because of things that are outside your control, flights are delayed, etc., they're not comfortable surroundings. Why not go out to contract to citizens from that area to create a space where people not only who are waiting for flights can go, but the people in those towns can go to?
And that's the exact strategy for the airport development in Exuma and Northern Eleuthera. They have like a town center at the airport. And that airport will have a lot of outdoor green space. I think it's about almost 60,000 square feet altogether. And I would say 20 to 30% of it will be public space available to the public at any time for weekend or town center type activities, restaurants, bars, etc.
Properly managed.
Properly managed, of course. That's the plan. See, one of the things we're doing or looking at is, once we invest $40+ million in an airport, how do we manage it more efficiently so we can have a company like NAD that's revenue-centric, driving the airport, ensure that all the revenues come in, et cetera, whether it's the parking fees, both in terms of aircraft and cars, all of the tenants pay their rents, et cetera, market rents. And that's what we're doing in the planning for these airports. And I think it's important to say that the airport in Exuma is a partnership with the government of the Bahamas, the IDB. We have a policy-based loan to build that airport. Is currently in the newspapers requesting pre-qualification of contractors. And that's going to happen Use probably August. We say August is our timeline, but maybe September. By September, the ground will be broken for construction of the airport. And the $40+ million I mentioned, half of it is the terminal building, and half of is the airside development.
Yeah, runway.
And
we learned from runways, they ain't cheap.
No, well, you've read in the papers today, $20 million at LPAIA to redevelop or resurface at the airport, etc.
And it don't really matter where it is.
Exactly.
It's the same. You got to have the runway for the same plane, right?
And Exuma, we want to have jets from Europe fly into Exuma, so they're the bigger jets, and there'll be $20+ million on the air side, we call it, not just the runway development by the airport. And we also working on an expanded airport in Bimini. So that's where the tourists, the huge hotel as well, casino development there. And the plan really is we want to expand these airports and also put the money where the tourists come, firstly, and secondly, put the money where we get the most return. And the small airports in the Family Islands, yes, we want to develop them. We don't want to forget them. Right. But we want to partner with Bahamians or other citizens to ensure that we can redevelop these, but in a sensible way, as you mentioned, and that will be profitable for them as well as for the government.
You talk about the airports that are in, say, some of the more far-flung southern islands especially, and what needs to be done. Well, obviously you don't have, again, if you build a runway, it can cost the same $20 million.
Correct.
Whether you build it in Nassau or you build it in Mayaguana. But, some of those places have runways, and they only can facilitate smaller craft, fine. But can't you do something that's much, much less expensive, and that is fix up the facility?
Yeah, and that's what we're looking at. We, as you know, money is not limitless. We have a finite amount of money, and the airports actually fall under the airport authority. They're the owners of all the airport. The government bestowed the land and the airport buildings in the airport authority. They have a budget, and we help them in terms of the planning and strategizing and how to spend that money and redevelop these airports. So we do need to fix some of these terminals. I agree. Some are really not a good.
Yeah, I mean, a couple $100,000. And is the premise of build it, they will come.
Build it sensibly, and
they will come. Will that hold?
Depends on where it is. Obviously, there has to be some sort of development to spark the tourists coming, and I wouldn't say put $10 million, for example, in one of the southern islands. It's just not a return on money. Right. You can't get any investor to put $10 million anywhere and hope the tourists come. There has to be a plan in place. But what the Stantec study does, it projects the tourism growth or the airport traffic over the next 10 years or so. And so we use that as a model in terms of where we're going to put our focus, where we're going to convert some of the airports to FBOs, and where we're going to pretty much do nothing. And we just can't respond to all of the requests. And you'd be surprised to know, Ed, the number of global businesses that approach us to partner with the Department of Aviation and the government, of course, to provide the capital needed to build these airports in, for example, Exuma. I get calls, I would say, every other day of global investors who really see the need to expand the airport and see this as a good business opportunity, particularly with interest rates so low. They look at the investment in capital here in the Bahamas as a wonderful or more attractive return on the investment. And that's why these airports in Exuma as well as North Eleuthera will happen. I mentioned there's a little bit more challenges in North Eleuthera, but the government will find a way to make it happen also, hopefully this term.
You see, and I don't know if it's going to come off, there's this potential investor in South Abaco, for instance, right? I would assume that with the kind of money that they're talking about, that would be one where you say, well, listen, you want an airport, you handle it. You take that Sandy Point Airport, that's yours. Do what you need to do with it.
And that's another airport that's primed to convert to an FBO. Abaco is only so long. You can probably drive from one end to the next in less than an hour and a half or so.
Yeah. Which for Nassauvians is a very long time.
But to put that LTI, that airport, there's $30+ million in Marsh Harbor, believe it or not. That's there. It's really too small. That was built when it was needed, but right now it's outgrown.
There are that many flights that go into there?
Yeah, that's the second busiest airport in the Bahamas.
Wow.
Marsh Harbor by far. The runway is too small. The design, I think, could have perhaps relocated the control tower. So that's limited the expansion. So we're looking actually at expanding that runway. I don't know if it's going to happen anytime soon, but we have a plan to turn the runway with an alternate runway towards Spring City, and that will give us the length we need to have bigger jets fly into Marsh Harbor, because the growth in Marsh Harbor is phenomenal. I was talking to a friend there, and they were talking about how business being so great, and the hotels are full, everyone is happy. Similar to the situation here at LPIA, and I'm sure when he spoke about when she was here the last time, the challenges they're having in terms of good challenges in terms of the number of increased tourist arrivals in LPIA, and that's really, really a good thing to happen there at LPIA. I can tell you, we plan in advance. We have what we say 20 busy days or periods throughout the year, and we have a team that includes the air traffic controllers, U.S. Customs Border Protection, the Airport Authority, NASA Flight Services, which I didn't speak about earlier, and NAD, where we work as a team to ensure that the tourists that visit that airport and leave, that they actually have a positive experience, because sometimes you come and those lines are an hour plus long. And so we then, for example, work with immigration. During this period on a Sunday, for example, we need you to have every single kiosk manned. We need customs. We need to have all the officers on. And this has been happening. We've had excellent partnership.
Yeah, I've seen it.
And it's been working out well. And we've been able to actually reduce the visitor wait time, both in terms of...
And it's good for the immigration officer. Instead of him sitting there and having to deal with 400 people, he's dealing with 100 people,
exactly.
which is
and
much...
I mentioned NASA Flight Services. We have an RFP that's currently being floated. I think it closes in a couple of weeks, where the government is exploring the sale of NASA Flight Services. That's a government agency that pretty much spends more than it earns. If you look at the financial statements are public now. The financial statements indicate that people-related expenses there are 90+% of revenue. So, for example, every dollar earns, 97 cents pretty much goes out to pay employee salaries and benefits. And
you got to change it. And I tell you what they found at NAD. When the airport authority was running it, a large amount of those people went over to NAD.
Right.
So it's not necessarily jobs lost; it's jobs better managed.
Right. Exactly. And so if the offer is right, on the terms are right, the government will accept an offer to either sell NASA Flight Services or franchise arrangement, because the government really, we're not experts in ground handling. The government just needs to stick to its core business of governance and allow the private sector to run businesses like NASA Flight Services. And with that RFP, a Bahamian company definitely will be the winner if the cabinet of the Bahamas decides that they're going to move ahead. Our mandate is prepare the RFP, which we did, do the evaluation.
I got one and I'm on your way.
It's on the government's website. It's on the government's website, and you send an email to boughton@bahamas.com, and she'll email you the RFP, the financial statements, all the support you need. And once you've prepared, once we've made a recommendation, the cabinet will decide if they're moving ahead or not. But this is a prime business ready for Bahamian to manage, and the government's policy is to create entrepreneurs, and that's why we're moving ahead with exploring the sale of NASA Flight Services.
Are we making any progress with the FAA as far as it concerns the overflight charges? Because that's something
a great point. We have a committee. We've had an RFP floated on that also. Wendy Craig, the former governor of Central Bank, she chairs that committee. I serve on that committee along with Captain Barnaby and others. And we're currently evaluating the proposals that we received for the overflight fees. And we expect to be able to make a recommendation on the various proposals we have within, I would say, a month. So we're pretty close to making a recommendation to select a partner or to do nothing at all. And the minister, as you know, he's forward-thinking, and he's been able to form this committee and ensure that we have our governance in place as well as our mandate. And I am very confident that based on what we have, we'll be able to make a decision very soon.
Is it a viable option to allow the Americans to continue to manage it without having to make any investment and to get a share of the fee so that your outlay is literally zero? Your maintenance of facility, because you know how things go, and then you just get instead of getting nothing, because basically we get nothing, you get something.
Yeah, there are various schools of thoughts, and you're right, Ed. There are various schools of thought, and what we're looking at is the potential revenue for reinvestment in the airport from collection of overflight fees. Yeah. It's not money that goes to the Treasury or in this consolidated account. It's money that's reinvested in airports. Is at least $25 million a year in overflight fees. And there are some people who think the overflight fees are a lot more. But this is our sovereign airspace. The Americans manage it on our behalf. As Ed rightly said, pay them a fee, but we collect through this third party the overall management and partnership with the U.S. government. And it's an opportunity for us, and hopefully we'll be able to advance this recommendation very soon. I can't talk much more about it to say that it's actively in process, and the proposals hopefully will be finalized. A recommendation will be finalized within 30 days or so.
It'd just be good, Rogan, to get to a point in this country, and I mean this. It's like it's like your life, right? You have your office, you have your home, you have all these things, and you have a lot of outstanding things. Yeah. And you strive to get to a point where everything can be in order, and you think about all of these different elements like the airports. The fact that Bahamians, forget about visitors for a second, right? The fact that Bahamians are traveling en masse to the Family Islands for regattas and et cetera, and you got wooden benches like Mr. Orknell built that in 1989 or 1976. It's not acceptable. Yeah. And these aren't high ticket scenarios. These are, and I go back to NAD again. When NAD came in here, the airport had a number one complaint, and it was bathrooms. Number one complaint. So they had a year or two period to go through the planning of building a new airport. But in the meantime, the first thing it did was to build out those bathrooms, and they did it in a way to plan how it would fit in with the overall project. So you go to these airports. Are the bathroom? I mean, a bathroom isn't hard to build.
No.
Or to put a waiting area. That's not hard to build.
And I was happy to hear about the plans for Exuma, especially because I travel to Exuma quite often, and I can't tell you how many times I hear tourists complaining when they take the bags off the plane. They put it on the back of a little truck or something like that, and they don't even know where to go to get their luggage. It's just it's an embarrassing way to come into the
I mean, you can build you can build 4-post thatch sheds, right? That give an islandy feeling.
Yeah.
Without having to be
costs, without huge
that's
costs.
Cost effective.
Yeah.
I think if you were to see in live action Naughty Lucifer, you would be even more disappointed. And I say that because that's a high-end market, Naughty Lucifer.
That's private jets and things coming in there, right?
No, well, that's an FBO there, but still, on a Saturday, for example, Silver Airways will have four or five flights into Naughty Lucifer on a Saturday or the weekend. And that's how much demand there is to fly to Naughty Lucifer from Fort Lauderdale. American flies there, Delta fly there, etc. And that airport is very, very busy on the weekend. And some tourists have to actually sit outside facing the planes. So it's not a good picture.
It's not.
And that's why that airport is at the high of our priority list. And
it's a really well managed airport, if I remember correctly. The last time I was there a couple of years ago was seemingly well maintained. I don't recall. That's a government owned airport?
It's a government owned airport. I wouldn't say it's well maintained.
I haven't been there. I haven't been in a while.
It's not something I am proud of to be a Bahamian at all.
Okay, well there you go.
I'm very honest. So.
You got to be honest because you know why? Because we go. You can't. It's not like something undercover.
Right.
It's not a stealth airport. Listen, Algernon, we got to go. I want to thank you for coming by. These subjects, ladies and gentlemen, that we're talking about. People say, "What's happening? What's going on?" there may not be, frills and thrills for everyone, but the reality is this is the information that you need to know. You need to be informed about what's going on. And I did not know, Rogan Smith, until right this moment, that all this stuff was going on.
Yeah.
It might have been in the papers, it might have been announced, but I didn't know 43 million was planned for Zuma. That's a big, major capital investment in that community. So hopefully it'll result in spin-offs. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll have you on again when the groundbreaker. And by the way, we're not averse to going on inaugural trips and those type of things. We're good at that, and we'll even carry the bags.
We'll remember that.
Okay, we'll do some flight services. We'll be back on Thursday. We'll see you then. Bye.
Thank you.